After this experience of the eternal night, the everlasting darkness in which she felt cast out even from herself, and having lost all contact with Shraddhavan, she lived in spite of death. She conquered still. And as a result of that, the light begins to grow in the darkness, and she becomes aware again of Shraddhavan and the god moving onwards. And death speaks. We're in the middle of this long speech of death, which starts on the top of page 586. At the moment, he's trying to convince Savitri of the complete illusoriness of human life. That there's no point in going on living, there's no point in trying to bring Shraddhavan back into the world of the living, because it's all illusion anyway. It's all some kind of imagination. So we're at the top of page 587. And death is saying that even what you think of as God, it's just a magnified image of yourself. And human beings, they want higher powers from heaven to help them. They imagine that in this unreal blue of the sky there are helpful, merciful beings. So I'm going to read on from line 177. For the sea roars around him, and earth quakes beneath his steps, and fire is at his doors, and death prowls baying through the woods of life. Moved by the presences with which he yearns, he offers in implacable shrines his soul, and clothes all with the beauty of his dreams. The gods who watch the earth with sleepless eyes and guide its giant stumblings through the void have given to man the burden of his mind. In his unwilling heart they have lit their fires and sown in it incurable unrest. His mind is a hunter upon tracks unknown, amusing time with vain discovery. He deepens with thought the mystery of his fate, and turns to song his laughter and his tears. His mortality vexing with the immortal's dreams, troubling his transience with the infinite's breath, they gave him hungers which no food can fill. He is the cattle of the shepherd gods. His body, the tether with which he is tied, they cast for fodder grief and hope and joy. His pasture ground they have fenced with ignorance. Into his fragile, undefended breast they have breathed a courage that is met by death. They have given a wisdom that is mocked by night. They have traced a journey that foresees no goal. Aimless man toils in an uncertain world, lulled by inconstant pauses of his pain, scourged like a beast by the infinite desire, bound to the chariot of the dreadful gods. But if thou still canst hope, and still wouldst love, return to thy body's shell, thy tie to earth, and with thy heart's little remnants try to live. Hope not to win back to thee Shraddhavan. Yet, since thy strength deserves no trivial crown, gifts I can give to soothe thy wounded life. The pacts which transient beings make with fate, and the wayside sweetness earth-bound hearts would pluck, these, if thy will accepts, make freely thine. Choose a life's hopes for thy deceiving prize. Which way are we going? This way?
For the sea roars around him and yet quiet. Beneath his steps and fire is at his doors, and death crawls baying through the woods of life.
So he's speaking about the life of human beings and why they look to the heavens for higher powers. It's because we feel surrounded by dangers. No? The sea roars around us, and the earth quakes beneath our feet, and fire is at our doors. No? And wherever we go in life, this image of the forest as the ambience of life, everywhere we go in the woods of life, there's so many different forms of death. Death prowls, baying through the woods of life. This word baying, it's the word that we use for hunting dogs, and maybe wolves also. So to prowl, that's what the predatory animal does. It moves around quietly looking for something that it can catch for its food. So for human beings it's like that. There's constant danger, and so they reassure themselves by imagining these bright and merciful powers inhabiting the higher levels of consciousness.
Moved by the presences with which he offers in implacable shrines his soul and clothes all with the beauty of his dreams.
Yes. So here, this sentence, death seems to admit that there really are some presences. It's not all imagination. No? And that these presences, whatever they are, which man is yearning for, they do in fact move him. They impel him and drive him. So there are these presences, and moved by those presences that he's yearning for, human beings offer their souls in shrines, in sacred places. They make sacrifices, they offer their prayers, they offer all the wishes and dreams of their souls. But he says implacable shrines. Implacable, it means something that can't be softened or propitiated. Whatever those presences are, man is not going to make them kinder to him. Whatever he offers, those shrines are implacable. They have no pity, no sympathy, no kindness.
You can't please them.
You can never please them, no. But man does that. He makes that offering and he imagines, he clothes everything with the beauty of his dreams. And then he speaks about the gods. Suresh.
The gods who watch the earth with sleepless eyes and guide its giants stumbling through the world, have given to man the burden of his mind. In his unwilling force they have lit the fires and shown in his incurable unrest.
Yes. So here he says there are gods, there are cosmic powers, no? And they are watching the earth with sleepless eyes. They don't need to sleep, they can watch everything that is going on. And in fact, they are guiding the earth and its giant stumblings through the void. The earth, something very big, moving through the emptiness of space. The gods, the cosmic powers, are guiding it, even though the way that earth moves is stumbling. Stumbling is when we trip and fall, no? Or almost fall. So it's suggesting the way that the earth consciousness is only half conscious and is always making mistakes. So those gods have given to man, to humanity, the burden of his mind. Perhaps it's easier to be an animal. You don't have to carry this burden, this heavy load of the mind. And they've also lit fires in our hearts, you know? Fires, aspirations, longings, enthusiasms. And they have sown in our hearts like a farmer sows the seeds in the ground. Those gods have sown in our human hearts incurable unrest. We are always longing and wishing and aiming for something, and if we achieve or receive that thing that we were longing for, we enjoy it for a little while. The next minute we are wanting something else. Perpetual dissatisfaction, incurable unrest. There is no medicine that will cure us of this malady of dissatisfaction, he says. Chandra.
His mind is here and often time unknown, amusing time with vain discovery. He deepens with thought the mystery of his fate, and turns to song his laughter and his tears.
Yes. So, Sri Aurobindo often speaks about the mind and the will as a hunter. A hunter is searching for something, perhaps he knows roughly where it is, but the mind of man is always hunting, but on unknown tracks. One of the
previous sentence also about mind,
mind and then heart. It's the heart that has the incurable unrest. No? And because of that incurable unrest, the mind again is always hunting after things, maybe even without knowing what it is that he's hunting for, or at least he doesn't know the paths which he's following. Actually, with our minds, we do make discoveries, no? But Death says, amusing time with vain discovery. So they're just passing the time with their discoveries, which are useless and pointless and of no value at all. No? Of course, his future, his fate is a mystery, and his mind thinks about that, but it only makes the mystery deeper. He deepens with thought the mystery of his fate. And another thing that human beings do to pass time, to amuse time, we turn our laughter, our happiness, and our tears to song. He makes it sound terribly frivolous, but actually it's one of the most beautiful things that human beings do, no? Is to turn deep feelings of all kinds into music. But he mocks all that.
But here it's given as amusing time, capital T, that means unending time.
Yes, I suppose he's thinking about the principle of time, looking at all this and finding it very amusing, these things. But it's also the idea that we are passing time. Vom.
His mortality flashing with the immortal flame, troubling his transience with intensive prayer. They gave him hunger which no food can fill. He is a captive of the shepherd God.
Yes. So this is they again. This is these gods, no? They vex man's mortality. To vex is to trouble or disturb or annoy. They trouble his mortality. The human being is subject to death, but they give those powers, give him the dreams of immortal beings. And that's very troublesome to somebody who feels that he is mortal. Human beings, he says, are transient, passing, they don't last long. But those gods, they trouble his transience, his short life, they trouble it with that feeling that there is an infinite breath, another possibility is there. And those gods have given to human beings hungers which no food can fill. Even animals have hungers which no food can fill. It's very, very noticeable that if you have a cat or a dog, you can feed them and pet them and look after them, but sometimes they will feel that they need something else completely. And then I had a dog that used to sing then. He would And the cats often do that. Just when they've been perfectly well fed, they will start howling and yowling. There's something that a hunger that no food can fill. So, and he says, he uses a Vedic image. He says, man is the cattle of the shepherd gods. We are just the cows and the sheep and the bullocks, and the gods are driving us along for their own purposes.
Actually, there is a name for Shiva, Pashupati. Pashu means all the souls here, and Pati is the Ashwapati as well, is the leader.
Yeah, he's the lord of the animals, and all we mortal beings are his animals, and he's the leader. No? Yes. So in the next sentence he continues this Vedic image. Howard, would you read?
His body, the tether with which he is tied, they cast for fodder grief and hope and joy. His pasture ground they have fenced with ignorance.
Yes. So this is the image that we are all the cattle of the shepherd gods, and they've put us in an enclosure. No? We are tied in this enclosure by our bodies, by our physical bodies. That's the tether, the rope, which keeps us tied to the stake. And they feed us. Fodder is food that we give to animals. They feed us with grief and hope and joy. And we are fenced around in this field where they have placed us. We are fenced with the ignorance. If we can escape from the ignorance, then the tether will be untied and we can be free. But he doesn't say that. Parry, would you read next, please?
Into his fragile, undefended breast, they have bring a courage that's met by death. They have given a wisdom that's not by night, by night. They have traced a journey that foresees no good.
Yes. So this is the predicament that the gods have put you all in, he says, you human beings. They are not bright, beneficent powers. They are just your masters. And they've given you this courage. You may make great efforts, as you, Savitri, are doing, but this courage will only lead to death. They've given you some kind of wisdom, but that wisdom that you have is just mocked. They laugh at it in the form of the darkness of unconsciousness. There's night which cannot be lit up by your wisdom. And they've given you a journey to follow, but there's no goal promised for this journey. It's just an endless journey going nowhere. You would like to read?
Endless man toils in an uncertain world, moved by the inconstant cause of his pain, scourged by costly strife and infinite desire, bound to the chariot of the dreadful God.
Yes. So human beings are toiling. It's a characteristic human feeling to feel that we have to make a lot of effort to achieve anything. No? But in fact, it's all aimless. There's no real result from that toil. in this uncertain world. The fruits you work for may be taken away from you at any time. He says, lulled by inconstant pauses of his pain. Lulling is what we do to a baby when we want it to sleep. So the gods somehow keep us quiet by these inconstant pauses of our pain. Our general state is one of pain and discomfort. Now and then they give us, from time to time, unpredictably, a time when we are not feeling pain. Then we feel relief and happiness, and that keeps us quiet, keeps us going.
Because of the lulling.
Well, that is the lulling, the fact that for a moment or two there's no pain. I suppose that's very reassuring to the baby. And he hears his mother's heartbeat and he feels good, comfortable, safe. And you're all being scourged, beaten hard like an animal, the way that the bullock drivers beat the poor bullocks. You are being scourged, you're being beaten by the infinite desire, the unsatisfiable, endless desire. That's what's driving you on all the time. And you are tied to the chariot of the dreadful gods. Just like a bullock, you're pulling along this chariot, carrying the gods along with you. They're just using you.
What is his intention by once he says they are loving you and giving comfort, and the very next sentence says scourging?
Well, most of the time they're scourging us, but from time to time they lull us. Yes? But all this is, we have no control over this. It's happening to us. The gods are ruling us like shepherds ruling their flocks or their herds. So that's a very Vedic idea. But then he offers her something. Yes, Mila.
By his blows he stands hope, and a still good law. Return to thy body's shell, thy tie to earth, and with thy heart little remnants try to live.
You can read the next line also.
Hope not to win back to thee, Shraddhavan.
Yes. So if after all I've told you, you still can feel hope and feel that it's worthwhile to live, if you want to go on feeling love, then go back to your body. That's your tie to the earth. And you can try to live with what's left. The remnants are what is left when everything is gone. With what's left of your heart, you can try to live. But don't think, don't hope to win Shraddhavan back to life, to your embrace. Who's at the back there? Will you read? No? Marie.
Yet since thy strength deserves no tribal crown, gifts I can give to suit thy wounded life.
Continue.
Protect with sanctioned beings, made with faith, and the wayside sweetness earthbound hearts reflect. These, if thy will accept, make freely thine.
Last
Use
line.
the life's hopes for thine exciting prize.
Yes. Actually, he has to offer this to her, but he makes it sound very, very patronizing. No? She has survived that everlasting night. She has come through. She has conquered. So he says, your strength deserves no trivial crown. You've won something. And not a small something either, a big something. What is trivial is small and meaningless. You deserve, your strength deserves some real prize. So, what I can give you is gifts that will soothe your wounded life. If you have a wound, you would like to put on it some nice ointment which will take away the pain. That kind of gift I can give. You go back to earth and I will see that you have quite a pleasant time of it. These pacts, these agreements, these compromises which transient beings make with fate, I can give you these things. And I can give you the wayside sweetness earthbound hearts would pluck, the kind of small enjoyments beside the road of life which make human beings happy, like beautiful flowers. No? If your will accepts these things, then freely you can choose, you can have whatever you would like. Choose a life's hopes for thy deceiving prize. It is not really a very valuable prize, he's implying.
Very honest he is. That's why he says deceiving prize.
No, he implies always that the things that human beings want to have, they have no value, really. Patricia.
And sees the ruthless and tremendous voice. Unendingly there rose in solitude, like moonlit ridges on a shuddering flood, a stir of thoughts out of some silence born across the sea of her dumb, fathomless heart.
Yes. So when he stops speaking, it's as if there are great waves, huge waves of a sea, an ocean, rising up within her. They're like waves lit by the moon, on a shuddering flood, on a great expanse of water that's moving. And there's a movement of thoughts out of silence, as if she'd been in a kind of silent, listening, receptive state. Now something rises, a stir of thoughts. And these waves move across the sea of her dumb, fathomless heart, this deep, powerful heart of love, which is Savitri's. You would like to read? No? Would you like to read? Yes?
At last she spoke, her voice was heard by night. I boast not to thee of huge mass of death, black light of night to the cowed soul of man, unreal, inescapable, and of dreams, to dream just play with the immortal spirit.
Please read the next line.
Conscious of immortality, I was.
Yes. So she says, I'm not going to bow down to you. You're offering me these gifts, but still, I'm not going to say thank you. No? I don't accept your authority. You are just a mask, you huge mask of death, There's nothing real about you. You are unreal, even though you seem to be the inescapable end of things. I don't believe in you, I don't accept you. You are just a joke, a grim joke, a joke that doesn't really make one laugh, no? A joke that is being played with the immortal spirit. She knows, she says, conscious of immortality, I walk. I know that I am immortal, and I won't accept this pretense, this disguise of yours.
You haven't explained the second name, black ray of night to the cold soul of night.
Yes, so you appear like night to the soul of man, which is easily frightened, cowed. It means that you are full of fear, and you come in this form of blackness, of night, of death. But it's all a lie. It is not true. You are not true. You are unreal. You're just a bad joke. And she can say this because she is conscious of her own immortality. Joel.
The victor spirit conscious of my force, not as a sibling to thy gates I came. Unslain I have survived the clutch of night.
Yes. She says, I've come conscious of my strength. I know that I will be victorious, and I have not come like a beggar, a suppliant. It's somebody who comes begging, asking for something. I have not come to your gates as a beggar. I have survived the clutch of your night. I have not been slain by it. And she's going to enumerate the other things that show her victorious strength. Praveen.
My first strong grief moves not my seated mind. My unwept tears have turned to pearls of strength. I have transformed my ill-shaped brittle clay into the hardness of a statued soul.
Yes. So she says, I was full of grief at first, no? But it has not, it's not moving me now. My mind is firm. I'm not full of fear and grief anymore. I have not wept. I have not given way to my grief. Those unwept tears of mine have turned to pearls, shining precious jewels of strength. And through this strength and steadfastness, I've been able to transform my ill-shaped brittle clay, the human body, the physical body which breaks easily, which dies, which is molded quite clumsily. I have changed that form of myself into the hardness of a statued God. If it's made of, her soul is made of, of a statued soul. Her soul is made of marble. Uday.
Now in the whistling of the slender chords, my spirit shall be upstand and strong against the vast refusal of the world.
Yes. She says, now there's going to be a contest between you and me. And in this wrestle, my spirit shall be obstinate. Somebody who's obstinate, they will not change their mind and they will not give up easily. They will go on insisting and trying. And I will be strong in the face of all the vast refusal of the world. the way that the world denies this hope and demand of hers, nevertheless, she is not going to give way to that. Ganga Lakshmi.
I stoop not with a subject mob of mind, who run to glean with anger satisfied hands, and pick from its mire lead many trampling feet. Its scornful smile concessions to the weak.
Yes, a concession is when, you give somebody something small to satisfy them. And here it's the image of some nobleman throwing coins to a crowd. Yeah? She says, I'm not going to bend down with the subject mob of minds, the many, many human minds who are subject to death and desire. I'm not going to bend down to pick up from the mire, the mud of the world, amid the many trampling feet, all those other people rushing to get those concessions. I'm not going to pick those up. The scornful, small concessions to the weak. If there is a mob of weak beings, then the big, powerful person may scornfully send them a few handfuls of pennies, of paisa, small coins, small concessions. Scornful, it means that that person who is giving those gifts, it despises the people completely. He doesn't respect them, he treats them with disrespect, scornful. Sarojini.
Mind is the labor of the battling gods, imposing on the soul reluctant ears. The flaming will that
reigns
beyond the
stars.
They light the glow of mind of matter onwards, and win the souls with thoughts on God's inconstant force.
Yes. She says, I am like the great gods, the cosmic powers, and I'm making an effort like their effort. The gods, the battling gods, the gods who are fighting the good fight for the divine, to carry the divine purpose forward. They, in spite of the slow, reluctant ears that don't want to change or become better, still they manage to impose on time eventually the flaming will that reigns beyond the stars, beyond the limits of the universe. There's a will, the will of fire, the will of the Supreme, that's full of intensity and heat and light and energy. Those gods impose, they lay the law of mind on matter's works. Matter can, or nature using matter can create certain things, even wonderful things, even diamonds. But the gods can introduce higher possibilities, and they've brought in the law of mind, which can do much more than what just matter can do. So the gods win from Earth's inconscient force, from that unconscious force that's working in matter, they win the wish, the demand of the soul. And I am like that, she says. That's what I'm doing. That's the battle I am fighting, to impose the will of the soul on the laws of nature. Martin.
First, I demand whatever Shraddhavan, my husband, waiting in the forest charmed, out of his long, pure childhood's lonely dreams, desired, and had not for his beautiful life. Give if thou must, or if thou canst, refuse.
So it's a very courageous answer, blunt answer. So first, I demand. He had asked her, choose a life's hopes. He invited her to, that's what I will give you, the hopes of a life. So she says, whatever Shraddhavan, when he came to maturity, waking up in the forest out of his long, pure childhood's lonely dreams, whatever he desired and did not have for his beautiful life, give that if thou must. Not because I'm asking it. If thou must. And if thou canst, if you are able to, you refuse it. She's showing him that she is more powerful than he is.
Is it in a way she is asking indirectly Satyavan, or only the kingdom for
we will see, we'll read what Death understands, because he knows, perhaps she doesn't know, but Death knows, he knows everything. He's Dharma, no Yama. So he knows what he has to give. Yeah? Mihong.
Death bowed his head in scornful cold assent. The builder of this dreamlike earth for man, who has mocked with the vanity all gifts he gave.
You read the next line also.
Uplifting his disastrous voice, he spoke.
Yes. So he just nods, bows his head. Again, this word scornful. He's in cold assent. He's still showing this feeling of high superiority. He's the builder of this dreamlike earth for man. And he has mocked with vanity all the gifts he gave, because whatever gifts he gives to human beings, he takes them away when he takes their souls away. So he's made all those, whatever gifts he has given, he's made them useless and meaningless. So his disastrous voice, Sri Aurobindo spoke about his lethal call. Something just in the very sound of that voice is destructive, is terrible. So what does he say, Rosa?
Indulgent to the dream, my touch shall reach. I yield to his blind father's longing heart, kingdom and power and friends and greatness lost, and low trappings for his peaceful age, the polished pomps of man's declining days, the silver decadent, glorious life for.
Yes. So he's giving back to Dyumatsena kingdom and power and friends and that greatness which he'd lost, no? And all those royal trappings, the comfort and the comfortable clothes and the service and everything, for his peaceful age. He will live a long time, he will have a peaceful old age, and he will enjoy the pallid pomps. Pomp is usually glorious display, royal display of colour and purple and all the rest of it. But here he says pallid. They are pale, really. Of man's declining days, the last evening of life. The silvered, decadent glories of life's fall. So he will not live long, he will die, but he will die in comfort, in glory, silvered glory. It suggests even the hair turning silver. Yeah. Yeah. Decadent. The way that we use decadent normally, it means, what does it mean? It means something that indicates collapse. A civilization, it may have high achievements, but then it becomes decadent. People become loose in their morals and in their behavior, their culture loses strength. But literally, it just means falling down. Yeah. Yeah. Andres.
To one who wiser grew by adverse fate, goods I restore, the deluded soul prefers. To impersonal nothingness, bare sublime.
To read the next sentence also.
The sensual soul-rays of the light I give to eyes which could have found a larger realm, a deeper vision in their fathomless night.
Yes, so he says, I'm giving him back his sight. Yes, I'm giving back, he grew wiser. He gained from this fate of having to live in this adverse fate of having to go into exile. But now I give back all the things that he felt he lost. He says, the deluded soul prefers these kind of good things to that wonderful status of impersonal nothingness, that bare, sublime state, free of all attachments. And I give back the comfort, the solace of the senses, of the light, and allowing him to see the light again. To eyes which could have found a larger realm. There's this tradition, that people who are blind outwardly have the chance to see with the inner light in a subtle realm. So he says eyes could have found a larger realm, a larger kingdom, a deeper vision in that deep night that they were in. But anyway, I'm giving back the light, he says. And then he says, for that this man, Shraddhavan, desired and asked in vain while still he lived on earth and cherished hope. So that's where we'll stop today. for the sea roars around him, and earth quakes beneath his steps, and fire is at his doors, and death prowls baying through the woods of life. Moved by the presences with which he yearns, he offers in implacable shrines his soul, and clothes all with the beauty of his dreams. The gods who watch the earth with sleepless eyes and guide its giant stumblings through the void have given to man the burden of his mind. In his unwilling heart they have lit their fires and sown in it incurable unrest. His mind is a hunter upon tracks unknown, amusing time with vain discovery. He deepens with thought the mystery of his fate, and turns to song his laughter and his tears. His mortality vexing with the immortal's dreams, troubling his transience with the infinite's breath, they gave him hungers which no food can fill. He is the cattle of the shepherd gods, his body the tether with which he is tied. They cast for fodder grief and hope and joy. His pasture ground they have fenced with ignorance. Into his fragile, undefended breast they have breathed a courage that is met by death. They have given a wisdom that is mocked by night. They have traced a journey that foresees no goal. Aimless man toils in an uncertain world, lulled by inconstant pauses of his pain, scourged like a beast by the infinite desire, bound to the chariot of the dreadful gods. But if thou still canst hope, and still wouldst love, return to thy body's shell, thy tie to earth, and with thy heart's little remnants try to live. Hope not to win back to thee Shraddhavan. Yet since thy strength deserves no trivial crown, gifts I can give to soothe thy wounded life. The pacts which transient beings make with fate, and the wayside sweetness earth-bound hearts would pluck, these, if thy will accepts, make freely thine. Choose a life's hopes for thy deceiving prize. As ceased the ruthless and tremendous voice. Unendingly there rose in Savitri, like moonlit ridges on a shuddering flood, a stir of thoughts out of some silence born across the sea of her dumb, fathomless heart. At last she spoke. Her voice was heard by night. I bow not to thee, O huge mask of death, black lie of night to the cowed soul of man, unreal, inescapable end of things, thou grim jest played with the immortal spirit. Conscious of immortality I walk, a victor spirit, conscious of my force. Not as a suppliant to thy gates I came. Unslain I have survived the clutch of night. My first strong grief moves not my seated mind. My unwept tears have turned to pearls of strength. I have transformed my ill-shaped brittle clay into the hardness of a statued soul. Now in the wrestling of the splendid gods, my spirit shall be obstinate and strong against the vast refusal of the world. I stoop not with the subject mob of minds who run to glean with eager, satisfied hands and pick from its mire mid many trampling feet its scornful, small concessions to the weak. Mine is the labor of the battling gods, imposing on the slow, reluctant years the flaming will that reigns beyond the stars. They lay the law of mind on matter's works, and win the soul's wish from earth's inconscient force. First I demand whatever Shraddhavan, my husband, waking in the forest's charm out of his long, pure childhood's lonely dreams, desired and had not for his beautiful life. Give if thou must, or if thou canst, refuse. Death bowed his head in scornful, cold assent. The builder of this dream-like earth for man, who has mocked with vanity all gifts he gave. Uplifting his disastrous voice, he spoke. Indulgent to the dreams my touch shall break, I yield to his blind father's longing heart kingdom and power and friends and greatness lost and royal trappings for his peaceful age. The pallid pomps of man's declining days, the silvered decadent glories of life's fall. To one who wiser grew by adverse fate, goods I restore the deluded soul prefers to impersonal nothingnesses bare sublime. The sensuous solace of the light I give to eyes which could have found a larger realm, a deeper vision in their fathomless night. For that this man desired and asked in vain while still he lived on earth and cherished hope.